Mohammed Siraj has burned a review already. There are few bowlers more sure of a dismissal and yet less in touch with reality. His captain, Shubman Gill, still trying to understand how to reviews better, is unable to curb Siraj's near famous 1000% certainty that every half shot is out. Ollie Pope is a terrifically nervous starter, and he cannot bat in the second innings of test matches. The bowling plan for him isn't really difficult to come up with. Attack his stumps, and when in doubt, attack his stumps. Siraj has already induced a couple of false shots off Pope from balls that nip back in. One beats his inside edge, and another hit his pads with extra bounce. This time, Siraj tells Gill it's definitely not height and is 100% certain about it. Gill has only a few seconds to decide if this is one of those times when Siraj is certain and right or certain and wrong. He decides to trust Siraj, and this time he is 10,000% right. Pope is out. Siraj is flying. This is the Indian quick in rhythm, the side of which is as captivating as it is frustrating when it doesn't happen. When Siraj is on, few are like him, but he seems to have no real idea of what makes this happen or how to capture it. His passion is always there. His rhythm is not. Ross Taylor couldn't see at night or when the clouds were in. Eventually, he had to see an eye specialist who would fix his eyesight. In the 2 years before the change, he still averaged more than 50 in international cricket. The top level of batting talent can basically see in the dark. That is who we are talking about in our new book, The Art of Batting. Head over and order your copy today. Stuart Broad was a rhythm bowler. When his legs were up and pumping high, he knew the ball was going to come out much better. So why wouldn't he do that all the time? The truth is, he was never quite in control of what worked and what didn't. All he knew was that on his best days, his knees were high. And when he tried to do that artificially, it didn't work. Siraj has one big disadvantage compared to Broad. On the Englishman's worst day, he can be a holding bowler because of his height. Siraj skids on. So either he's flying and the ball is nipping around, or he isn't and the ball slips into the bat very nicely. His rhythm is even more important than Broad's. If he needs things to fall into place or time to find it, India is not the ideal location to bowl, especially as the second seamer behind someone like Jasprit Bumrah. Siraj has a stellar record playing for Hyderabad in the Ranji Trophy, so we know he can bowl on Indian wickets. Even while playing tests in Asia, he's had his moments, but he's just not been required to bowl as much because of the pitches. In more than half of his games, he's not even bowled 20 overs in a match. He has great numbers in the West Indies from 2 tests, but obviously, as recent history has shown us, they're not a great batting lineup. He does lead India's pace attack when he plays there in the absence of Bumrah and Mohammed Shami. In South Africa, he strikes once every 7.5 overs while going in an economy of about 3.2. But a big reason for that was the 2024 Cape Town test when he destroyed them in the first session of the match. Let's call that a rhythm spell. But the 2 big ones are Australia and England. Those are the series that garner the most attention, and legacies are made for the big 3 players there. It's also 2 of the best series for quick bowlers. So this series can count as double for him, for the amount of watches and for the amount of extra overs he'll deliver. That is when all eyes are on him. So when Mohammed Siraj stands at the SCG with tears welling up as the sounds of the national anthem echo around the ground, more people are going to notice that. It's the 3rd test of the 2021 series, and this is his moment. But he's somewhere else, thinking about his father who passed away 2 months back. Siraj was already in Australia when it happened. The bio-bubble rules mean that he couldn't go home, couldn't attend the funeral, couldn't grieve with his family. So he stays, trains, plays, and now he stands here holding back tears as the anthem plays, because that is what's left to do. That's the moment when we see every single emotion of Siraj. He's like a teenager's dream journal. Every page is full of drama. Mohammed Ghaus drove an auto rickshaw through the streets of Hyderabad. That's Siraj's father. In a recent Instagram post, Siraj says that watching him taught him what hard work really was. Head down, no complaints. And after a bad day with the ball, trolls dig into Siraj's background, mocking his father's profession. And he calls it out. This is a man who gave up everything so his son could chase his dream. And on his first tour down under, when he's living that, he had to bear the brunt of racist abuse. Nathan Lyon said he set a new standard in calling it out. But it was really a huge moment in modern cricket. But also, India pull off an epic draw at the SCG to keep the series alive. But for the final test, Bumrah was not available. The spin twins weren't either. This was a series where India had already lost a gazillion first-choice players. Siraj was brought on as the 5th bowler on his debut at the MCG by skipper Ajinkya Rahane. At the Gavatoire, he would have to open up and lead the bowling in only his 3rd match. It was an attack with 2 players who were first asked to stay back as net bowlers, a backup seamer who was a late addition to the squad, and an inexperienced tearaway quick who didn't actually bowl all that much in the match. Siraj picks up 5 in the 3rd innings. Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne are in there. Those are some names to have in your first 5-wicket haul. India won a series for the ages, and Siraj was a national treasure 3 tests in. Siraj has 33 wickets in 8 tests in Australia. His average is 20% worse than expected, while his strike rate is 10% lower than the mean for the matches he's played in. But he's also competed against the great Aussie pace trio, Scott Boland, and of course, Bumrah. They've delivered 70% of the non-Siraj pace in those games. In 24-25, he was back as the 2nd seamer again, with Shami missing that series. Like in Australia, he takes 4 wickets per test on average in England too. His overall mark is slightly over 33, which again doesn't scream greatness, but he does strike more often than a normal bowler, while being costlier than par as well. It is kind of what you'd expect from a high-impact bowler who can skid onto the bat. After Lord's 2021, it seemed like India now had another seamer who they couldn't just keep on the bench anymore. But that match is like a pivot in Siraj's career. At that point, his strike rate was close to the global seam average, and he was conceding 0.3 runs and over fewer in those games, with 2 games on ranked turners at home where he didn't have to bowl much. These were essentially the numbers of a very good stock seamer, someone who could bowl the dry spells, and maybe with Bumrah and Shami around, he was told that was his role. But another key difference has been that even though he takes his wickets at about the same rate as earlier, he's clearly going for a lot more runs. He has the economy of an attacking seamer, but the wicket-taking frequency of a stock bowler. That's not where you want to be. He was also just spectacular against lefties up until that point in 2021, while going at slightly above 30 against right-handers. Since then, he's improved quite a bit against the normal batters, but against the southpaws, his record has just fallen off a cliff. This probably has something to do with the fact he doesn't get as much of the off-cut as he used to before. But he shouldn't have gone from nearly unplayable to unbowlable against lefties. Normally, you'd think that going around the wicket causes issues for left-handed batters because of the angle. But that wasn't the case for Siraj at the start of his career. His potency against them came from actually bowling over the wickets. His average coming around has actually improved, but then the big deal has been that he can't dismiss batters from over the wicket at all anymore. And so 1 year into his test career, when he was playing incredible, Lords and the Gabba were already just 2 of the 5 test wins outside of Asia, or in Senna, that he had been part of. To put that into perspective, Zahir Khan had as many wins in those 4 countries over his entire career. Kapil Dev only had 3. Of course, that is a function of the teams you play in. One player alone can hardly influence a test massively, but it tells us how good of an Indian team Siraj walked into. In fact, you can even see Shardul in 3 wins on this graph. And since then, there have been 3 more, Cape Town, Perth, and Edgbaston. Siraj said that Edgbaston was the 3rd best of his life after Gabba and the Lord's wins. And those are all pretty fantastic matches. But there's actually something very fun about Siraj's record in wins and losses in these countries. He is on a roll when they triumph, taking his wickets at 18 runs per piece. For context, Bumrah is in the 15th, but Ishant, Shami, and Zahir are all in the low to mid-20s. Of course, some of that is the modern pitches and the strength of opposition batting lineups. He also has the 2nd most wickets for an Indian seamer in these matches after Bumrah. However, this is what is interesting for Siraj. It all falls apart when they lose. Bumrah still more than holds his own, going at under 27. Zahir and Shami are in the mid-30s. Ishant is up at nearly 40. Siraj, though, is a good 3 runs above Ishant. He is either screaming at Travis Head or doing almost nothing at all. Siraj is either on or he's off. There is no middle ground. We looked at the standard deviation for fast bowls in terms of economy. Clearly, Siraj's econ is all over the place. You never really know which version of him turns up on a given day. And this really explains what we've been talking about when it comes to rhythm bowlers. It can be memorable or forgettable. The issue for people like him or Broad is that they are not sure how they are good, and so they can't fix it on the bad days. How can you rebuild a machine when you don't know how you made it work? Watching him bowl, it doesn't seem like he's consistently great at grinding out wickets on flat decks or just landing the ball consistently in the good areas on seam-friendly wickets. And yet, he has done both. He can pick up 6 on a flat Edgbaston pitch, but also struggle to put the ball in the right place in the pink ball game, like, say, in Adelaide. He could wreck South Africa in one session on an unplayable surface and be absolutely toothless when defending 378 against England in Headingley. He could be the difference when Bumrah isn't around, and yet not actually support him when he's bowling brilliantly at the other end. The more you look at Siraj's record, the more it confuses you. Like Broad, Siraj came late to being a fast bowler. He was seen playing tennis ball cricket in Hyderabad. He first bowled with a leather ball in a club match in 2014. A year later, he would make his debut in Ranchi Trophy. That is nothing like the journey of a conventional seam bowler from most centre nations. So his raw talent is there, but it is largely uncut. That is the frustration, because he hasn't yet developed the way you want. And maybe he feels that too, because he is either massively high or low. He's out there changing the bails, getting in the face of batters, causing mischief, or he's kind of asleep at mid-on, caught in his own thoughts. His best ball is absolutely unplayable, and he's been a major exponent of the three-quarter seam wobble ball. If Shami was fit and firing, he would work so well as the third quick in this attack. In fact, he was really the four-seamer in the Lord's match in 2021. So far, he's had a really mixed summer because that's what he does. The final figures do not do him justice in the second innings at Headingley or the first innings at Lord's. In the second at the home of cricket, it was a good outing. The 6 at Edgbaston was obviously his best, but a couple of times he just wasn't up to the mark either. And maybe this is what he is, someone who will never be perfect. At his age, he might yet find more consistency, but whether he's ever going to be a game after game bowler seems less likely now than ever before. He might always be the magic or nothing rubber ball guy. And maybe that's just what you get with rhythm bowlers. You can't actually control when it arrives. You can only hope that it does in the right place at the right time. Ride or die, his way or no way. Brian Lara used pot plants to work on his placement. John Wright glued his glove to his bat. Sachin Tendulkar dug up practice pitches. Tatenda Taibu cut the top off his bat. Claire Taylor used a hockey grip. Steve Smith was from tennis. Dean Jones would call phantom runs. And Victor Trumper turned the nets into a war zone to survive. The best batters in the world do whatever they have to make runs. We have told their stories in our new book, The Art of Batting.